Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. This is the next webinar in a series we're running here at Just IT, which cover a number of different topics in the tech world. And today, as James said, we're going to be looking at how to bridge the IT digital skills gap. If you've been on any of our previous webinars, such as diversity and inclusion, which was back in July, then we're delighted to have you back. If this is the first you've signed up to, then I hope the next hour is insightful and helpful. As James said, my name is Paul Crisp. I'll be guiding you through the next hour. Just to give a bit of an idea of the format of the session, will firstly be some comments from our Group Commercial Officer, Lee Dempster, who's going to give us an overview of the skills gap and how you, the employer, can plan to bridge it. We'll then have a couple of polls. We want to gauge your opinions, and that's going to lead into a discussion led by our Client Services Director, Richard Lambden, and we have a fantastic panel waiting to give their opinions as well. We're also going to give you an overview of our new Information Communications Technician Programme, as well as our software development boot camps. As James said, there's also an option for a Q&A after, so please feel free to put any questions in the chat box in this, as this webinar progresses, and we'll look to answer as many questions as we can at the end. So you can see about us, just a quick overview of who we are at Just IT and Skills Team. We're an organisation that cover three areas. We cover IT training, so short courses for individuals, senior IT recruitment, and of course, apprenticeships in both the IT and digital space, as well as leadership and management. We're delighted to be celebrating our 20th anniversary this year as our official birthday back in March of 2021. The year flies by. We did a bit of number crunching around the business, and we realised if we added up the years of service and apprenticeships of our staff, we have over 450 years of experience. Over 200 years of those are within Just IT. And we're also proud of the work we do with our clients. A couple of those we'll be hearing from later, and around 70% of our business is repeat. We're also very proud to say that we've helped over 10,000 people either start or progress their tech careers in the last 20 years. And we also have currently around 70% of our learners in place with our top 20% partners. And you can see on the right some of the accreditations and partners we work with. Before I go to Lee, just wanted to talk about something that John in our marketing team found whilst researching for this webinar. He found an advert on YouTube from AT&T, the American telecoms company, which predicted what technology we would be using in the near future. You'd be surprised. It looked like this. Firstly, we had virtual business environments. Now, I'm wondering if they also predicted that the sentence "you're on mute" would be used 1 million times. They also predicted the consumer use of satellite-based radio navigation systems, which of course we all simplify to sat-nav and use quite regularly when we're driving around. And the final piece they also had, they had some others, but finally they had virtual learning. And I'm sure there are a number of people on this call that don't want to hear the term homeschooling again. It's quite scary how many things they got right. We're going to send you the full advert when we follow up with the recording tomorrow, but we'd also love to find out what you predict the technologies and applications of the next 15 years will be. So please feel free to put those in the chat in the questions section for us to collate after. I'm going to hand over now to Lee Dempster, our Group Commercial Officer. He's also going to be a panelist later on. He's going to give us a market overview of the IT and digital skills gap. So Lee, over to you.
The digitally skilled candidates available and the lack of digital skills in existing workforces has been estimated to cost the UK economy in 2019 £63 billion a year. And some examples of how the problem is continuing to develop. The number of young people choosing IT-related subjects at GCSE has dropped by 40% since 2015. 76% of firms have noted that the lack of digital skills will impact their productivity and their profitability. In the UK, when I wrote this 6 weeks ago, there was 31,000 vacancies in software developers. There are now, 6 weeks later, 68,930 software vacancies live, according to the RAC, which is the Recruitment and Employment Confederation. A huge boom in vacancies, and there's not enough talent to fill them. Over 3 in 4 UK executives claim that it's difficult to recruit people with the right technical skills. And research from the Learning and Work Institute shows that 70% of young people expect employers to invest in teaching them digital skills. Only half of the companies surveyed said they were able to provide any form of digital or technical training. So what can be done to bridge that digital skills gap and make the UK workforce really ready to face the challenges for the future? As most of you are aware, the vacancies have surged past 1 million in the UK. And current research shows that 2 in 5 employers are hiring on an ad hoc basis and failing to plan for future staff needs. With competition for talent ramping up in the wake of the pandemic, it's now more important than ever before that employers are reviewing their talent acquisition strategies. Leaders in this space must think differently in order to generate genuine change and adapt to current market situations. Fewer than half of British employers believe young people are leaving full-time education with sufficiently advanced digital skills. The problem in the UK is further education is only really accessible if it's affordable, and the need to democratise access to education is just as important if we can widen out the talent pool. Reskilling and upskilling must become a viable option for aspirational people of every background and socioeconomic status. And it's evident that a lot of higher education institutes aren't factoring in those future careers of their students in the courses that they currently teach. While work needs to be done to get more students engaged in technology in the first place, the courses on offer must evolve to ensure accessing learning remains worthwhile, or companies will need to find alternate solutions. So before investing or hiring new people into the business, it's critical that businesses spend time assessing what their skill gap actually looks like. The first step for any organisation is to identify that gap and go through process to actually understand what those gaps are. 5 simple steps, really. First is audit your current performance against your company objectives. Secondly, find your future point of travel and assess potential gaps. Thirdly, what are the trends and market movements? Evaluate your plans against what is going on within your market space. Number 4, open discussions with your digital leaders on what they feel needs to happen. And finally, evaluate your own people training needs. What investment needs to go in to be able to accommodate the ongoing need to continue to develop skill sets? So for employers, the long-term strategy needs to be that. It needs to be long-term. Short-term success won't mean much for your organisation if you then continually face further skill shortages a year or 2 down the line. How can you use and synergize with your talent acquisition process, the training process, and how you're going through an ongoing development of your people? And it's that approach that's going to create a renewable skills pipeline for you as an organisation. So some simple ways that companies are looking at this current point in time to bridge their digital skills gap. One is apprenticeships. Regarded as the government's key responses to the skills crisis, apprenticeships offer employers the ability to use the apprenticeship levy funding, bring in new talent or upskill their current members of staff. Pathways covering a broad mix of most in-demand skills, apprenticeships are not only a way of bringing in desired talent, but of also building a structure around the future of the team by upskilling existing team members in exposure to mentoring or training, by giving the apprentice a clear progression path into future roles within your company. For skills bootcamp, there's many bootcamps coming live at the current point in time, and it's recently been expanded after a successful trial in the north of England. And skills bootcamps are part of the government's plan for jobs with the aim of tackling some of the more abundant skills gaps. In the UK, as I said, currently there are 68,000 software developers. So we have a skills bootcamp in software development, which gives foundational skills across development, as well as opportunities for applicants from varied backgrounds to gain in-demand skills and start a promising career. It's delivered over 12 weeks. It's intensive. We organise existing staff or we recruit new hires into that training. And learners can progress straight into a development role, or indeed they can go via the level 4 software development apprenticeship. There's also commercial training, or typically referred to as short course training. And that can be an efficient way of creating a solution for many employers. This path typically means that required knowledge can be learned and deployed as quickly as possible, giving a clear advantage over more long-term form of upskilling. Another benefit to this is essentially everything from project management, Microsoft, there's so many choices available that you can really cherry pick and work out how short courses can fundamentally upskill the people that you've got within the business. And it does give many organizations the opportunity to pick and choose and create short course but ongoing learning for their people. When looking at hiring new talent, we know the hiring market already is extremely competitive. There are some roles that simply must be filled with the right level of talent. Senior roles across in-demand fields like IT security can't be filled with any sort of compromise. For those, you'll need to look at specialist recruitment services that know that field well. This may mean thinking very differently to how you currently have a preferred supply list of suppliers in there who may not be market specialists in areas that you need to fill. A specialist recruiter will always have a head start even in a talent short market because they have existing relationships with top talent. They also have a keen understanding of what their candidates' expectations are going forward. As candidates are getting more and more stronger in their negotiating position than really ever before, and this is the fastest growing market in the last 24 years and the most amount of jobs in the last 5 years, then working out how to present opportunities to them has become ever more crucial. So, as technology moves at an increasingly fast pace, it's created jobs in emerging sectors that didn't exist even a decade ago. Some of the most sought after positions that people are trying to fill at this current point in time, blockchain, data analytics, healthcare technology, the list goes on. They are continually evolving as skills needs. Some responsibility inevitably lies with the education sector to reskill people, no matter what stage they're at or the background they come from, to fulfill roles in areas that are more sought after. Education platforms need to come together with employers to bridge the skills gap through new programs that are more outcomes driven. Essentially, a more symbiotic link between education, training, and employers could create a more viable solution to the shortage.
Thank you very much, Lee. We look forward to having you back on the panel shortly as well. Now we're going to do a couple of polls just to get your thoughts. So I'm going to pass over to James for the first question. James.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crisp. Guys and girls, let me launch the first poll. So the first poll is, do you believe that the education system is generating the skills needed for the digital or modern workplace? So I'm going to just generate that and launch that poll right now for you. So simple, yes, no, or I don't know. So if you can get your votes in, please, and I will publish the results so Paul can narrate the findings to the group. Lots of votes coming in. So I'll give you another 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's close the poll and I'll share the results with you in the studio, Paul.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. So do you believe the education system is generating the skills needed? Yes, 14%, and a massive 81% of you, sorry, don't believe so. 5% saying don't know. That's some really interesting thoughts that we can talk about in a second with our panelists. We're going to go straight into another poll for you as well. So back to you, James.
Fantastic. So poll 2 is, now this is more aimed at you guys and girls on the webinar now. So does your organization have the talent acquisition strategy to deal with the digital skill shortage within the next 12 months? Let me launch that poll, and exactly the same findings, which is either yes, no, or a simple don't know. Please get your votes in and we will share the results once again with Paul in the studio. Votes are coming in, Paul, thick and fast. I'll give it another 5 seconds because, people might be deliberating. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll close, share, and they'll be whizzing to a screen near you, Paul.
Thank you very much, James. We'll see you shortly. So out of that, does your organisation have the talent acquisition strategy to deal with the shortage? 63% of you say no. 16% say yes. 21% say don't know. So that's 84%, that was quick maths, that feel that they're not sure or don't believe you have the strategy necessary. So hopefully that's some really good food for thought and some interesting results that will lead really nicely into our panel discussion now. So I'm going to invite our Client Services Director, Richard Lambden, to come on screen. He's going to lead the next 25 minutes and have a bit of a chat around that. So Richard, over to you.
Thank you very much, Paul, and good afternoon, everybody. If I could invite Sean, Nick, Shakira, and Lee to join me up on camera, please. That would be very much appreciated. There they are, fantastic. Lee, I think you've kind of already done some introductions, but Shakira, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience today, please?
Hi everyone, I hope you can hear me properly. I'm Shakira Moyes. I work as a workforce development coordinator at Great Ormond Street Hospital, and I'm also on the NHS grad scheme.
Thank you very much indeed. Nick.
Hi, I'm Nick Westall. I'm Chief Operating Officer and Technical Officer for Technimove. We deliver technical services where our customers cannot, and we're the market leader in data center migrations.
Superb. And Sean, over to you, sir.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sean Robello. I work with Temenos. Temenos is one of the leading banking software. I think we are #1 globally. I look after the HR for UK and Ireland.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, and good to have you on the panel today. So we've had a couple of polls there. I was, I guess, slightly surprised by the results, particularly that the 81% of people thinking that the education system isn't quite providing the skills that we need. Nick and Sean, I can kind of come to both of you for some reaction, because obviously you are very much in recruitment roles. Are you surprised by that? And if so, what skills is the education system not providing us? Nick, perhaps you want to comment first?
I would say that having had 3 children that have gone through the educational system, and equally being recruiting in people, many at the front line of the organisation, we rarely see the skills that we're looking for on the CV actually coming from the education system. Typically, we're seeing from the jobs that they've picked up and their own interests, whether they're actually proactively taking themselves into IT, or whether they've gone off and started their own training with another provider. So yeah, it's what their interests are, whether they're gaming as well, usually drives an interest in IT, but we're typically not seeing it from education establishments.
Okay, Sean, is that similar experience for Temenos?
Yes, I agree with Nick. It's a very similar experience. The only thing that I would add is that quite often what we end up doing is we look at the person's interest in the area we're looking at, and whether they're eager and they're willing to learn that particular field. So
Cool.
that
Thank you very
helps
much
us to drive and see the skills we need here.
Lovely, thank you. And in terms of the second poll, Lee, obviously you're working broadly with a lot of clients in different sectors. 63% saying they don't have a strategy, and 21% not sure, which would probably suggest they don't either. Is that a concern?
I think it's an opportunity. I'm not surprised by that. We speak to a lot of organisations, and I think it's a timing thing. We exited, we did Brexit, and then COVID came along. So lots and lots of organisations in the UK didn't need to come to the market because they were dealing with other challenges. And it's now that the market has opened up, lots and lots of organisations are now beginning to realise that there's an impact and implication to Brexit, and that there's been a huge change in workforce supply, with people going back to, or going to different countries, going back home through COVID, not deciding to come back. So that has impacted the UK workforce and the supply of it. I think organisations are now playing catch up, both in terms of short supply roles, but also how do you put together a strategy across talent acquisition, learning and development. You know, how do you enter the market in a different way, because the market is completely different to what a lot of organisations would have faced 18 to 24 months ago.
Interestingly, there was a recent one of our other clients, Pearson, did a survey, and it kind of echoes what our audience has said, actually, because they found that 2/3 of UK firms were worried about skill shortages, and obviously being topical, we're not just talking about lorry drivers and people who work in abattoirs, which seems to be the latest shortage. But Shakira, in your sector, obviously very, very specific in terms of the NHS, and you were telling me that conversely, you've seen an increase in demand for people that are wanting to work in kind of the medical, more clinical roles. But where are you seeing shortages, particularly in your sector?
Absolutely. I think we think that our skills gap was would be in nursing or any of the clinical roles, but actually we're quite oversubscribed for that at Great Ormond Street Hospital, whether that's because it's Great Ormond Street Hospital and everyone kind of wants to learn there. But we are also finding that we have loads of skill gap within the digital side of the business. If you look at our jobs page, we're looking and seeing a lot more vacancies for IT technicians, IT support engineers, ones you probably wouldn't have seen before the pandemic. But as the pandemic hit, we realized very quickly that our IT skills within the business were not where they were supposed to be. I joined the trust in March 2010, and my laptop was only just updated to Windows 10. We just did a training needs analysis as well, and the usual skills gaps were coming up, which was about management skills, timekeeping skills, minute taking skills, but strangely enough also Excel skills and team skills, Zoom skills as well.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much indeed. So let's broaden it out into the kind of the general conversation. Now we've kind of reviewed that. Sean, if I can come to you first. Obviously, you were telling me that your business has kind of gone through a period of reorganisation as you kind of come out of the pandemic and react to the banking sector and what their particular needs are, old school versus kind of startups, etc. What sort of skills are Temenos looking for now to help grow your business? What areas in tech?
Yeah, I think what the pandemic has done is it's made everyone, whether it's employees or businesses, to relook at how things are done. And we are seeing a massive change in the way banking is done. It's quite big. So we are seeing the way banks want to move completely into a digital way of supporting their customers, providing the service. Now, what this has led is, as an organization, we started introspecting and looking at how we need to actually support our clients and their clients. So it isn't that we are going to a reorganization. We are going to an internal introspection. We have not done any redundancies. We have not done dismissal, nothing of that kind. But we have started relooking at how do we get the right skills in place for the future. So typically the skills that we currently are looking at are in the area of cloud, security, data, and technology. That's primarily because banks are moving from one way of having their software and packages done to a cloud-based and a SaaS model of operation. So that skill set is evolving, and we need to look at that.
Excellent. And there's to coin another phrase that seems to be doing the rounds at the moment. People are kind of talking about the great resignation, aren't they? People coming out of the pandemic and people, as you said, having a period of reflection. Has that impacted Temenos? And if so, how are you counteracting that?
Yes, I think many are talking of great resignation. I also heard a concept of the boomerang coming back. So people who have quit may start coming back because the reasons of the trigger no one knows. However, fortunately for me, one of the things that I've seen, I'm not very old in Temenos, I'm relatively young, about 5 months with them. But one of the attractive things about Temenos is basically their culture. It's a very open culture. It is a self-driven culture. So people can drive and work how they want to get things done. So when the pandemic hit, I'm aware that the teams in UK and Ireland already worked remotely. So it wasn't something that as an organization we found challenging. It's the only thing that we went completely remote. We've definitely had attrition, but having not been with the firm pre-COVID, I don't have a proper picture of whether it's in terms of the great resignation or it is normal business. But we have not seen many people leave because of personal circumstances or because they're deciding to change their career. What we are doing as a firm simultaneously is providing employees with the tools in terms of how they want to enhance their career. We do not have a formal appraisal system. We do not have a formal career plan. what we have done is on Unity, which is our internet, we have provided that information online, and we encourage employees to look at where they want to move and what's the next step they want. So we encourage careers which could be vertical or it could be horizontal, and that's what we are looking at. We are hoping that, yeah,
kind of self-directed learning then, Sean. So almost kind of mapping their own careers to a certain extent.
that's right. That's right. Because there are people who are happy doing what they want to do, and they don't want to grow. So there's no point in us nudging them to move on, because that's not where they want to go. So we want people to drive their own careers and take that initiative. Yeah.
Superb. Nick, this the kind of leads nicely into yourself. I know both at your former employer CSCI and now at Technimove, you're very much a kind of hard for attitude, train for skills kind of mentality. But you were telling me you've got this, similar to Sean by the sound of it, this really mapped out kind of people development type plan that you really kind of believe in. So tell us a bit about that and how that's helped you in your career.
Well, the challenge that we have at Technimove is that we're quadrupling the size of the organization over the next 4 years. And that means that I need a massive conveyor of talent coming through the organization given that we're going to quadruple the size of the company, we're going to probably quadruple the size of the workforce as well. So the way in which we do this here and at CACI before and at MTI before that is that we recruit at the front and we promote from within. And then we give everybody a personal development plan that matches what they would aspire to and what they would like to achieve with their career. And we fund that, and we give them 10%, at least 10% of their working time, so that they can actually achieve that personal development plan. It also means that they're working towards the roles to which they aspire, and we buddy them up. It's almost like mini internal apprenticeships, so that they can go and learn those skills, build up the communication capabilities and the networking capabilities, so that they can actually, when that role becomes available, interview for it, and they will be the natural successor to jump into that role, whether it's a new one or an existing one that's been created by someone else moving up within the organisation.
That sounds really interesting. How much of a part does my kind of words, but kind of shadowing in a technical sense? I mean, you talk there about the networking and the communication skills, but does that equally translate in terms of the technical skills? Can people build their careers with you through shadowing and partnering and being mentored by colleagues?
Yeah, we use lots of different ways to actually build up the skills and the capability. It is very much a learning through doing, and that is very much sitting down with someone who's already doing the job that they would like to move into and receiving that hands-on training. It's very much that they are actually doing the work with others, coaching and mentoring them through, so that they can build those skills up. And then we'll supplement that with more formal training courses or apprenticeships, and or whether it's vendor training from specific technology providers.
I think I'm right in saying you also have kind of field-based colleagues as well. Well, I'm guessing the communication side of things is especially important for those if they're very much kind of client-facing. What do you do specifically to kind of build skills there? Do you kind of assign people projects? Do you do profiling? How do you kind of, because communication is a difficult one to teach, isn't it? So how do you go about doing it?
It is, and because we're going through a lot of change and growth in a very short period of time, there are lots of problems to solve, and there are lots of customers to help. But almost all problems that we encounter in some way, shape or form come down to a breakdown in communication. So one of the very first things we do with any team that we take on, and indeed any new employee that comes through the organization, is that we put them on a DISC behavioral profile. And that just allows them to become more self-aware about how they behave, what their default position is on how they communicate with others, and how do they behave and communicate with others when they're under pressure, and maybe when things aren't going quite as well as they should do. It also means that they can recognize how other people prefer to communicate and how they're likely to behave in any given circumstance, so they can gauge where they're up to and how is the best way to actually handle that circumstance when they're there.
Excellent, thank you. Sean, you were nodding away there. Is that something that you found beneficial within your career and obviously more recently at Temenos?
Yeah, I think Nick mentioned about the disc, and I think that's very helpful. It's a very helpful tool, especially from the manager and the organization to make employees aware. And that's the reason I was agreeing with him, because a manager, if he uses the tool well, he can support the employee to grow. And Nick seems to be doing that. His organization seems to be doing that very efficiently.
Thank you. In terms of Technimove, then, you were telling me when we had a conversation prior to the webinar that, you know, the way that kind of the traditional banking sector works, I'm talking technology here, Sean, compared to, let's say, a startup and a challenger bank, and those sorts of things are quite different in terms of the platforms and the programming languages that they work with. How have you kind of coped with meeting almost two disparate demands from a talent sense? You know, how have you built those skills? You've done it internally, we had to buy those skills in. What challenges that presented?
Yeah, so we are using both strands that we are doing. We are enhancing and we are training people internally to move on to what we call as the new technology, which is generally used as open source, open technology, and cloud-based systems, rather than a hosted and on client-side managed system. So we're using that. Simultaneously, what we're doing is we're using apprentice and youngster, new career employees to come in, learn how the banking model operates, because that's core to us. We are a banking software. So learn how the banking model operates, and then train them on the new technologies and the old technologies. Because the reason it's so important that they know the old technology is because quite a number of our existing clients want to transition to the new technology. So while we are supporting them, people should have the knowledge of how to help them to transition to that. And that's how we are trying to get people to work on both technologies simultaneously and transition.
Yeah. And I guess, Nick, I mean, obviously you're at the forefront in terms of digital transformations. I mean, that's, you know, I guess to a certain extent that's what you're helping your clients to do. So how have you tackled this similar challenge in terms of moving almost from old world to new world technologies?
Well, we've Technimove have majored in data center migrations for over 23 years, and now we've got amazing growth on the delivery of technical services, helping our customers go through that digital transformation. And that means that we need to build up that skill set within the organization dramatically. So we've been taking the whole of our engineering base and moving them through this conveyor of talent and these personal development plans so that they can actually take on these skills and capabilities. And so each person within the organization typically will have one of three things to do at any given moment. They'll either be working on straight customer delivery, they'll be training, which means that they're either being trained, they're training someone else, or they're going through self-directed training with their personal development plans, or indeed they're furthering their personal development plans and the change we need as an organization by taking on personal projects. So yeah, delivery, training, and projects, and everybody has each of those. So at any given moment, everybody knows exactly what they need to do.
So continual improvement, I guess, isn't it? The continual professional development. Shakira, you mentioned that whilst you've been oversubscribed in the kind of the clinician type areas, there's been increased demand for leadership skills. I think you said data skills, IT skills, etc. So, I mean, how has that impacted in terms of your role, you know, in workforce development, apprenticeships, etc.? How have you seen that play out over the last kind of year, 18 months of the pandemic?
I think the biggest thing is that we're seeing more apprenticeships being offered in, like, when I started, I didn't think there would be any IT apprentices, and now we're looking at opening 2 new vacancies, which is a huge thing. So it's not just upskilling our own staff, we're actually recruiting in to grow our own, which is going to impact our retention rates in ICT and also, you know, help our business. We have the saying at Gosh, it's like we do things the Gosh way, which means that every person that we recruit has to go through a period of retraining anyway, because we do things slightly different because we're so specialized. And you know, being able to recruit into ICT apprentices is completely new. We didn't have them before. If you spoke to the old IT director, it wouldn't even be a thing on their radar because they're so busy, they don't really have time to train. But with the pandemic and seeing how much the business relies on technology, you know, it's not just the clinicians. Don't tell them I said that because they'll get really angry at me. But you know, it's not just the clinicians anymore. The real backbone of the business is our IT services. We need them for our machines. We need them for our laptops that we use at home to do patient to have patient appointments. We need, you know, and we're seeing more now places like data analyst apprentices and ICT support engineers. You'll have to correct me, I'm very bad with all the names. But you know, those are huge now, and people before who might not have thought about, you know, bringing someone on, teaching them the Gosh way, thinking about retention, are now seeing the benefits of having these apprentices in the digital world, and seeing how much they really support everything that we do.
And I guess, you know, in terms of, you know, kind of bridging the skills gap in terms of the theme, retaining and upskilling, you know, we hear, is it 30,000 vacancies at any one time, if not more, in the NHS at the moment? So I guess retaining talent is pretty critical. And I think you were telling me, Shakira, that is it Lauren in your team has been creating some data just to improve the performance of your own team. How has that worked?
Absolutely. If my line manager Lawrence was here, he would call her a wizard, and she actually is. I don't think I've known anyone who's able to look at a mess of data and being able to pull something out of it that's, you know, in layman terms that everybody can understand. So she's our data analyst for the Gosh Learning Academy that looks after education throughout the whole of Great Ormond Street, and obviously apprenticeships fall under that. So she works with us as well, and she's really transformed our way of reporting on apprenticeship numbers and our levy spend and stuff like that. You know, using her dashboards, we're able to now predict and see our levy spend from 2 years before, see where we are now, see where we might be in 2 years. So if we spent, I don't know, if we lost our minds and spent all of our money on the higher degree apprenticeships, we'd be able to see that in 2 years we most likely need to be transferring in funds to bolster up our levy. Because of her work, actually the whole of the Learning Academy has changed their reporting because of the way that she's able to take the data, put it into a dashboard, make it easy to use, and, you know, simplify it. I think the NHS probably has a problem with having too much on a page or too much that you don't really understand, and her ability to take that and make it simple and make it really impactful has been just amazing. And you can see it in the way that we've been reporting apprenticeships and how the rest of the postgraduate education have been reporting as well. And they haven't taken her away, but she has been loaned out very lovingly.
I mean, and that's the beauty, isn't it? Because, you know, we're all awash with data, but the whole point is that you can make some sense of it to help businesses make informed decisions to either get a better return on investment, and obviously every pound is precious in the public sector, or indeed, obviously, you know, streamline and make things more efficient. Thank you very much, Shakira. Lee, I was reading an MC survey recently, and they said, in not surprisingly, I guess, comparing the last 12 months, but in August 2021, demand was higher in every part of the country compared to 12 months ago. As I say, it's probably not surprising, bearing in mind the times we're going in, but there were some very interesting areas that were particularly in need. Software engineering and software developer, I think you referenced yourself when you spoke earlier, were top of the tree. But, you know, if you look at the wider market, what other trends are you seeing?
Well, one consistent trend is my inability to make technology work for me. So, as everyone saw at the beginning of this, so there is something about being consistent. I think there are two elements to this. The first is, I was looking at data from Amazon did on the 17th of September, they did a global careers day.
Yeah.
Whilst they were obviously trying to hire for themselves, they actually did it because they wanted to scrape data in terms of what people were looking at and everything else. So the UK data of all of the people that applied in that one-day process, which is tens of thousands of people from the UK, it was 1 million globally in a day. they identified from that data 59% of UK people in that survey were either actively looking or would be actively interested in if people made contact with them about an interesting opportunity. Of that group, 42% of them wanted to do something that was in a completely different industry to what they were currently working in. And of that whole population, over 70% wanted to develop their career, but it had to include ongoing training and development. I think the trend here is you've got candidates, I don't think it's not a candidate short market, it's a skill short market, is essentially everybody's got to start working out the answer to it. And candidates are looking up and going, I need to retrain, I want to reskill, I want to look at opportunities or sympathetic organisations that are going to allow me to be able to do that. We've done work with Nick in the past on exactly that. You've got organisations that I think are either being very innovative, how do they multi-layer their talent acquisition, their learning and development, their training, and put it all together. And then we've got to try and work out who the facilitators of matching all those things together are. So I think ultimately the trend is going to be consistent. The market is going to continue to, I don't think it will smoothly move. The market is continually hopping. And back to that software development data, you know, 6 weeks ago there were over 30,000 vacancies. There's now under 69,000. The market is the busiest it's been in 20 odd years. There's no reason why that's going to just come to an immediate halt. So I think the trend will continue about technology.
If try and get you to kind of do your Mystic Meg impression and think forward. Paul showed us some slides from, you know, predictions for 15 years ago. I'm not going to ask you to predict the skill shortages or what skills are going to be in demand, shall I say, for the next 15 years. But if you know, something, again, reading another survey when I was doing some research for this, there was a, not surprisingly because it's in their interest, but a leading kind of B2B software search website was saying that 40% of SMEs, so not even the big boys, but SMEs were using either AR or VR as part of their kind of training. So is that something, you know, what are going to be the in-demand skills? Do you think that's one of those ones that's going to be popular, or is there something else you're going to predict that people are going to be looking out for?
I'm going to steal the Open University does a hot jobs, what does the next 5 to 10 years look like? And they do it by scraping information from 50,000 mentions across industry influencers and experts. But their top 10 are renewable engineers, machine learning experts, cybersecurity penetration testers, blockchain engineers, AI developers, sustainability engineers, AI analysts, data analysts, any form of data protection officer, everything, and digital strategies. I think for us, it's when we're looking at the world, I think the busiest part for Just IT has been centered around anything to do with data and developer has just continued to grow at a ferocious rate, and how companies are dealing with that, transferring it, working through old technology to new technology, anything that sits in between them. I think I would have probably picked out 6 or 7 of those Open University trends. So I think going forward, artificial intelligence, machine learning, anything to do with data and all forms, and everything to do with security of that data and those systems are going to be the prominent next 5 years markets.
And the thing that's always interesting with these surveys is the job titles that didn't exist 3 years ago that suddenly we all get 3 years down the line. I'm going to just to kind of wrap it up, because I think it's quite an interesting topic in terms of what skills do we think are going to be needed. If we kind of go down the line and just ask for your own impressions, perhaps from your own sectors and job roles. Shakira, what do you think are the skills that Gosh are going to be particularly be needing? They either be technical or soft skills, whichever you think. What are the things that you think you're going to be looking out for?
I think ICT security, anything in that. The way that we have really ramped up our use of personal laptops, personal phones, just anything about that. And I don't think people really read the ICT policy at all. And so I think we're going to need a lot of security in the future, just because of the way that we use our laptops, are working from home, are working at McDonald's if we can't get into the office. I think we're going to see a lot more of those jobs.
Yeah, other fast food chains obviously are available, just for anybody on the call. Nick, what are the skills that you would like to see coming out of schools that you think are going to be in demand over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, the first ones are maybe not the ones you'd think I'd come out with, but I'd say very much communication, leadership, and management skills. These are just, on the whole, unless you're doing something special at school, are completely ignored. And as we touched right at the beginning, the ICT skills that need to come out, actual, tangible, useful ICT skills, not just how do you turn it on and how do you move around a screen. It's how do you become developers, how do you become coders, how do you actually understand how it's all put together. And for all of the lists that Lee mentioned, it's like people don't even know what AI is or machine learning is when they come out of school. Just having that start, if that's going to be the future for the next 10, 15 years, and I think it definitely is, that's where they need to start.
Cool. And Sean, last word for you, sir. What would you think your sector's going to need to help you sustainably grow?
I think it would be more in line what Nick was saying. You would have to have a good soft skills that would come out in terms of comms. One thing that I think would be key for people to come out with is the communication skill. It is now, most of the youngsters are used to gadgets, but there's more than communication than 180 characters or 360 characters. So it's that kind of skill that you have to have. How do you deal with difficult conversations when you're working in project teams? So those kind of skills are something that I would hope people come out. And of course, technology side, whether it's AI, whether it's cloud, whether it's API, those things, understanding of what it is more than the skills that are there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much indeed. Interesting conversation. Before we go, James, I just if you could just double check the chat facility for me before I hand back to Paul to take us through the rest of the webinar. Are there any questions that need answering at this stage whilst I've got the panel with me?
This is how good this panel has been. We've had a couple of questions come in, but they've kind of already been answered by the answers that you've kind of had today. We've had a couple of sort of overview points, which is quite insightful. We'll share some of those overview points with some stats, especially from the Amazon point. Someone else is really excited about that. So we'll share them with a wider group afterwards, but no initial questions that need to be answered now, sir.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. I think we can go on mute and off camera again. And Paul, I'll hand back to you for the next stage.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you to our panel. That was absolutely fantastic. You can see that someone else has come on screen next to me. He's usually the voice of these over top. We never see his face, but he's here. It's James Fenton, so he is one of our directors. He's going to give a bit of an overview to our newest apprenticeship program. So, James, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I'm normally the R. Graham to the blind date, but hey, you can see me now today. So just want to take a couple of minutes after that very insightful panel discussion on the new kiddie on the block for our IT level 3 apprenticeships, and that is the Information Communications Technician, which has taken over the old infrastructure level 3, which was withdrawn back in July this year. And there's been some key fundamental changes and also some great changes for both employer and candidates. So I'll give you a quick overview of just some of the points on this. So first of all, the duration of the program is 14 to 17 months. We say typically because people go through it in different times. The lead up to the endpoint assessment is just over 12 months, and then there's an amount of time that they would need to go through the endpoint assessment before they complete those remote learning and off-the-job experience within their employers. Clearly, who is this for? Now, we're looking for people that have got keen passion in IT, that want to get into IT jobs and have hands-on experience within first or second line support or equivalent. Job titles, you can see there's a vast array of job titles that you can give these candidates, but for us here at Just IT and also the industry, what we do is we do more of a deep dive into actually what the job title constitutes in the fact of their day job, their duties, and what they're going to get exposure to. Even though we're the training provider, we don't give the candidates the final mark. That is rubber stamped by the British Computer Societies, the BCS, and they're the ones at the end that will be able to give the final mark. But we do quality assure all of our work throughout the process, so we can give you an idea of what level the candidate is going through. So this might come up a little bit smaller on your screen, so we will share the overviews with you, but let me just give you a quick whistle-stop tour on the apprenticeship learner journey. So in the old infrastructure technician, if you are a client that is joining the webinar or listen to this post the event and have taken on the infrastructure technician, I'm going to give you a quick overview of how the fundamental changes have switched into the new ICT program. There used to be 5 knowledge modules, but we are in the new program still covering 5 main key areas. And you'll see that from milestone 2 to 6. Sort of milestone 1 is business processes and IT essentials. So, managing, prioritizing workload and the best efficient use of time, but also allowing, say, if you're going into the IT essentials, their approaches to system upgrades and updates. 2 parts of the learning. We give the candidates access to Aptem, which is our online CRM system purely made for apprenticeships. And on that database, we'll have an option of them to go on and do some online directed self-learning, so they can get a feel of what the content they're going to be learning before they come onto the virtual training instructor-led workshops. The best thing that we want to do, because this now is, there is a huge focus on the employer taking the lead on how, after they've taken the learns from Just IT, is how they implement and test those skills and knowledge that they've learned in the workshops back into the workplace. So you'll see at the bottom of that, you'll see there's a portfolio starts increasing, and throughout the milestones, you'll see incremental increases in the portfolio. This will come down to how they're going to put that learning into the application of their day job and then get tangible evidence from that in the form of a portfolio. So it's really key that whatever subject they're learning with us at Just IT, that the line managers bring it to life in terms of a project that they're going to be doing in their day jobs. The second part in milestone 3 is around sort of network essentials and troubleshooting. So they know the principles of WANs and LANs, and also the basic elements of network infrastructure, including Wi-Fi and wired networks. A lot of us have lent on our IT for companies and departments, especially within this remote period through COVID. Milestone 4 is around cloud services and maintaining systems, so I make sure that they know a good awareness of cloud platforms such as AWS, Azure, and GCP, but also maintaining those systems to reduce the incidence of faults as well. So you'll see that there's packaged in block days as well. Milestone 5 is about networking and cybersecurity. So, making sure that they are bulletproof in the networks, having security, especially with data and GDPR at its optimal, but also have a little bit of deep dive into sort of principles of ethical hacking as well. So that's a really sort of a new addition to the program. And then going on to the last part 5, is about sort of coding and scripting. So it's basic coding and scripting to execute relevant tasks, for example, PowerShell or Linux. Each of those 5 parts will allow the learners to collate a portfolio evidence, and then that gets sent off to the awarding body, BCS, as part 1 of what we call the endpoint assessment and EPA. Part 2 of the EPA is a project that they'll need to write. If you are, and I said you are, and you've used us previously on the infrastructure technician, they would have got given 2 or 3 subjects or topics that they can write their project on, but it was not always necessarily tailored to what they'll be doing in their day jobs. So now the government gave the power back to the employers, so you guys can choose a subject that they can do their portfolio project and their project report on, which is basically tailored to what they're doing in their day job. One, it'll allow them to get a deeper understanding of what they're doing, but clearly it's going to put some return on investment into your business. So that project report is also sent off to the awarding body as well. Before we actually go to the endpoint assessment, we do have a bit of an EPA support session. So they almost have a bit of a mock EPA, so they kind of know what they're going to be questioned on and probed on. And I use question and probe because both parts, the portfolio is part one and part two is the project. They'll have two professional discussions, and these are like holistic professional discussions, which are quite probing, and how they do that is they'll probe into validating the evidence, confirming the competence to make sure they've bulletproofed what they've done and they've applied that within their workplace. But also, as they're sort of probing conversations, it has the opportunity to extract any additional information that is outside of their portfolio or project that might actually bridge the gap between a pass and a merit and a merit and distinction. Then after those two parts have been done, the overall mark will be, I just said there, a pass, merit or distinction. And then if they, at the end of the program, they're yours to embed within your workplace and potentially put them onto further qualifications. What I want to do now, if you do want a further overview of that, please reach out to us guys and we can book a meeting to talk you through how the ICT program can be implemented within your workplace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand you over to Richard Lambden, who's going to give us an overview of one of the newest incentives in the space of skills boot camps, and the one that we're using and delivering is on software development. Over to you, Richard.
Thanks very much. So if we move on a slide, please. The format you'll see is quite similar to the ones that James just explained. This is very much part of the government's plan for jobs to get the economy moving again. There are different skills boot camps up and down the country. We are commissioned to deliver one in software development. It says there it's a 12-week program. It's about a 12 to 16-week program, 12 weeks of intensive technical training for those learners, shall we say, that are slightly further from the marketplace and need some additional support with their softer skills that Nick and Sean talked about earlier, and help with interview techniques and writing CVs and so on and so forth. Will get an additional 4-week support from us. But in essence, it's a 12-week program. It's available to anybody that is age 19 and over that's either been unemployed or is looking for work, or indeed employers, if you've got colleagues that you want to perhaps transition. They're a great colleague, but they're in perhaps the wrong role, and you found out they've got some hidden bedroom coder talents, and you'd like to upskill them, you can put them on the program as well. And the technical elements, as I'll show you in a minute, cover things like HTML and JavaScript, CSS, Python, database design, as well as giving the fundamentals around system development lifecycle and methodologies. So if we go into the program itself, you can see the milestones. Hopefully you can see that on the screen. So in their first week, they will be understanding the system development lifecycle and methodologies. And this program is taught as the equivalent of kind of a level 3 apprenticeship in a fast track methodology. And they will start to build some evidence, and they'll start to understand software methodologies. In weeks 2 to 5, they will have some workshops around understanding the basics of HTML and JavaScript, structure, layout, coding, and start to integrate that into a web-based product. Weeks 6 to 8 is more around database design. And they will have an assignment. As you can see at the bottom, they're required to show evidence that they've learned, and they put it into practice, and there will be a database design project that they need to do as part of that. We move on to milestone 4. You can see that they then are introduced to Python, which is a more advanced coding language, and again they'll have an assignment to do around that. And then at the end they'll have a consolidated workshop to make sure that their portfolio of evidence that they can demonstrate to you is complete, and for employers, we're inviting employers in to meet with the learners, whether that be in person or virtually, so that they can showcase their talents and you can hire them. And the objective at the end of this, because we've trained them at a level 3, albeit in a 12 to 16 week fast track boot camp, the aim is that they would be ideal students for you to employ on the level 4 software developer apprenticeship, which is obviously more advanced, and help close that skills gap that Lee mentioned earlier with the 69,000 vacancies there are in the country at the moment. So a little bit of whistle stop tool there, Paul, but back to you to conclude the presentation.
Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you to everyone involved today, including our panelists, Richard, James. Thank you so much. We've obviously done the kind of question and answer bit and covered that. So the conversation, sorry, doesn't need to stop here. If you'd like to speak with us more around this topic or around apprenticeships in general, please reach out to us on the number and the email on the screen, or you can reach out to your account manager. You can now also find us through LinkedIn. We also have a group called the Apprenticeship News. It keeps you updated on the world of apprenticeships, and it also allows you to connect and chat with people in the industry. This is our last webinar of 2021. You'll be sad to hear, but we will be back stronger in 2022. We're going to be going through National Apprenticeship Week. This is going to be during, and the webinar is going to be around the future of learning. So please do join us Thursday, the 10th of February at 12:30. Finally, there's going to be a short survey once this webinar closes, so we'd really appreciate you taking a couple of minutes to give your feedback. If you found this interesting, please spread the word, and if there's a topic you'd like us to debate in the future, please do let us know. On behalf of all of us at Just IT, thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Take care.